Hey, I'm Nick Stalker with Demonic Procedures. Welcome to Let's Make a Game Part 3. Today we'll be tackling Flappy Bird, as you can see up here, the Flappy Bird clone. Now, this is a game that I just made like an hour ago, and if we run the layout, we'll see what we'll be, and hopefully we'll be ending with today. So it says here, left click to start. We have our little Flappy box, and up here we have our score, which is 0. So we'll left click to start, and you can see it kind of bounces around. And we have this little intro kind of area to get them used to bobbling around, and then the pipes come in. So as you can see, as I go through the pipes, my score increments, and the pipes are kind of up and down and going different ways. If I hit the pipe, I lose. My score is 3 for this round, and my high score is 3 because it's the first time I've run through this. So hit replay and left click to start. The score is back down to 0 over here. Kind of get used to the controls again, and the pipes come in. So I'll see if I can get through a couple of these. And 3, same as last time. So, and then also, if you left click and then you just crash into the ground, that score for that round is 0. My high score is still 3, because that's as far as I can get, because I am obviously terrible at this game. But hopefully by the end, you guys will be good at making this game. Maybe not good at playing it, like I'm not, but maybe you'll be good at making a Flappy Bird clone. So, let's do this. Close this down over here. And there's my Adventure Capitalist. It's an idle game that I am super addicted to right now. But that's not why you're here, so let's get into this here. So we have our layout. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to minimize my old project, and I'm just going to go to this new project that I started over here. And we're going to change the project name to Flap Bird, because that's the game we're making. The first layout, we're going to rename this to the game layout, or game. Rename this to Game Events. And we're going to go back up here to the Flap Bird, and we can see that our window size is set to 854 by 480, so I'll just select this, hold Control, and press C. And we can see this dotted line, that's our window size here, but our layout size is much bigger, so let's conform our layout size by clicking the layout game over here and then going to the layout size. We're going to conform that to our window size. So that way we won't have all this extra space that's not really needed. And this will be our little game board here. So now that we got our window set up and we got our project named and we got our event sheet named, let's start making some objects that we can play with. So we're going to right click anywhere in this little area. It doesn't have to be in the white spot, it can be anywhere. Right click, we're going to choose Insert New Object. We're going to choose Sprite from the General tab, and we're going to name this Flap Bird, and it's going to come up with a little crosshair, I guess you would call it, or a plus sign. We're going to left click anywhere, and it'll bring up our image editor. Here we can see our image editor. This will show all the animations that our images have, and these will show all the animation frames. And here's our color palette, which is I think by default you might have the rectangle select, so that might not show up. But once you click like a fill button or a rectangle button or a line or a paintbrush or any of that stuff, the color palette should show up. Maybe not to the left of it, maybe somewhere else, but it should show up. So let's pick a color for our Flap Bird, and we'll go pukish greenish yellow, kind of urine yellow, like that. And that should be good. So we'll right click, close that down. We have our Flap Bird, but he is ridiculously huge right now, so let's scale him down to 32 by 32. I don't remember what I did last time. That looks about right. 32 by 32. Yeah. So for the first thing we want to do is be able to get this guy to start bouncing up and down and whatnot. If we play the game now, it's just a box sitting on the screen. So that's not very fun. There are a couple ways that people go about doing their Flappy Bird. There are a couple of behaviors that they use. Some people prefer to use the physics behavior, and I've seen people use the 8-direction behavior, and I've seen people use the platform behavior. I've seen, you could do it a couple, and I've seen people use the bullet behavior to make their Flappy Bird game. I'm preferential to the platform behavior when I make my Flappy Bird. It's just my preference because I think it makes it a little bit easier to do, and I'll explain a little bit later on. So now that we have our platform behavior applied, we can go over here to our behaviors tab and see the platform. Max speed, all this stuff doesn't really matter to us. The only thing we want to do is change default controls to no, Because if we leave the default controls on, they'll be able to move the arrow keys and move them around, and we don't want to do that. So if I hit play after this, he just falls down, which is exactly what we want him to do. He has gravity applied to him, perfect. So now we can go over into our game events. Let me close down this old one here so you guys don't get confused. So let's go over to our game events. We'll go to add an event. Oh, and yes, hold on. Sorry. We're going to have to insert a new object because right now we can't control him with the mouse because we haven't inserted a mouse object. So we'll right click, insert new object, and let's find the mouse. You may be doing this for touch. So if instead you can just swap out mouse for touch. I'm doing it for a desktop, so I'm going to use mouse, but it's almost the same thing. So I'm going to use mouse and insert. And now we can go into our game events. We can go to our game events, add event, mouse, on click. The click that we want to use is the left. The click type is clicked. We don't want to use a double click or anything. And hit done. And on left clicked, we want to have the bird go up, right? So right here it says on left button clicked. What do we want to do? We want to go to flap bird. We want to set his vector Y. That basically sets the Y component of motion. So what that is, basically it's telling it to push it up in the Y, a certain amount of pixels, or pixels per second, sorry. So we want him to go negative 100 pixels up. If we were to say 100 pixels, if we come over to here and see our position, the first set of letters is our X, the second set of letters is our Y, and if we set this to 0, we can see that's at the very top, and if we set this to 480, that's at the very bottom. So Y doesn't run bottom to top in construct, it runs top to bottom. So 0 is up here, 480 down here. So if we want him to go up, we have to go into the negative numbers, right? So let's just put him back, and he's already set to go negative 100. Hopefully that'll be enough. Nope, it's not really. It's kind of stopping him. Like click like crazy. Let's set it maybe a little higher. I don't remember what I set in the other one, but we'll just kind of fidget with this. Maybe negative 500. Let's try that. That seems kind of bouncy. I like that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. So now we can bobble this guy up and down, but he's not like rotating. You know, we want him to like rotate down if he's falling, or rotate up if we're flapping him up. So to accomplish that, and this is why I like using the platform behavior, is that we can go to add event, flap bird, and we can choose the is falling behavior to check if the object is falling, and we can go to add action, flap bird, and we want to rotate towards an angle. And the degrees that we want to rotate is, so how this works is say the angle that we want to rotate towards. So if, let me just put some numbers in here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We can see here that this little line pointing out is the angle over here, and right now it's at 0. So if we rotate this down to 45, that will be the angle that we're rotating towards, which is a nice 40. I like that angle right there, 45 degrees. That's the angle that we're rotating towards, right? And this, the amount of degrees is how the increment that we're rotating towards that. So it'll go 2 degrees for every basically, I think it's like on every tick that it's falling. It'll rotate 2 degrees towards that 45 degree angle. And then we also want to set on the left button clicked, flap bird, rotate toward angle, and we want to set his angle to a negative 45. I think that might be too much. Might go like 25. And we'll set this at 45 degrees because we just want it to be a quick perch back up. We don't want it to have to click it a whole bunch of times, and he's only going to rotate a couple degrees at a time. We want him just to snap basically to the negative 25. So now you can see as he falls, let me get up here, he starts to rotate towards that angle that we set, and he won't go past that. He'll just get to that one angle. And as we click, you can see he snaps back up like he's trying to flap back up towards the sky. So that's the basic player controls for this, which is awesome and very easy so far. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click anywhere inside this event sheet, and I'm going to add a group. I'm going to call this group bird movement. Sorry, my nose is stuffed up. Let's edit that and maybe spell movement correctly. That'd be helpful. And I'm going to left click over here, hold my shift key, left click over here, and just drag these into the bird movement group, just so it's a little cleaner, so I can minimize this group and I don't have to see all that code. And also, maybe a good idea, right click the group, we'll go to add a comment, and the comment will add, see, on left click, move bird up and rotate back. Move that down there. Control C, Control V. Change this to on bird falling, rotate down. Just so we know what all our code's doing, and if we ever hand this off to somebody else or want to share it on the Circuit forums, they know what our code is doing. So it's always good to keep your code nice and neat and commented and grouped up for ease. So now we have our bird, and we can control him, but we need to start spawning some pipes for him to run into, or else it'll just be you bobbling this thing over forever, and it's not very fun. So we're going to create a couple of things. We're going to create some pipe spawners that are actually going to spawn our pipes. So we'll create a pipe, or let's see, top pipe spawn. And the color of this doesn't matter because if we won't see it, so we'll go to this really ugly orange-ish color, or brownish color, sorry. Insert a new object, sprite. We'll go to BTM, stands for bottom pipe spawn. Click over here, fill. Set that aside over here. There we go. So these are what's going to be spawning our pipes, and we want the pipes to spawn on the bottom and the top, the middle of the pipes to spawn on the bottom and the top. So we need to set these origin points to be at the bottom. So this has to be at 480 in the height. And now we can see that this middle part here is perfectly aligned. The origin point, this little handlebar, is perfectly aligned with the bottom here. And this one we want to set the height to 0. And here we can see it's 1011 in the X and 0 in the Y. And it would be nice if these were both in the same X position, so we'll just take this one's X position and we'll paste it over into this one. So now this one's at the very tippity top, this one's at the very bottom, and they're both at the same X position. Good. Now we can create our pipes that are going to be flying at our guys out that we have the things that are going to spawn our pipes. So we can right click, insert new object, create a top pipe, and let's make it green, fill it, and that's good for that one. Right click, insert new object, sprite, BTM pipe, stands for bottom pipe. Fill it with green, close it. Super quick, super simple, not crazy difficult to understand. So these are kind of wide for pipes, so let's cut their width in half. So half of 250 would be 125. That's still a little wide to me. Half of 125 is not 75, is it? No, that's 150. That's fine. I think 75 looks good though. That's a good pipe width. I don't know about your pipes, but you know, my pipes look about that width. So I'm going to introduce you guys, and now that we have our pipes, I want to introduce you guys to something that I don't think we've talked about yet, but can be super helpful, and they're called families. So if you look over in your projects tab over here and go to your project, mine is the Flappy, you see we have our layouts, our event sheets, our object types, which just list all of our objects, and then you'll see a folder called families. If we right click this folder, we can add a family to it, and we can select the objects that we want to add to that family. And since top pipe and bottom pipe are both pipes, might as well add them to the same family. So we'll select the object that we want to add to the family and click add and hit OK. So now we have family 1. We're going to right click that and change the name to pipes. So basically what this does is it allows us to put a behavior on all the objects, or basically interact with all the objects while only interacting with the family. So whatever we do to this whole family will happen to all the objects within that family. So that way we don't have to have what's called redundant code when we're doing our game events. So that way we're not saying, okay, top pipe do this, bottom pipe do this, top pipe do this, bottom pipe do this. We could just say, hey, all pipes do this. And it's helpful for if you're making a game, say you have a bunch of enemies, and they all share some common attributes, like they're all 8-direction behaviors, they're all solids. It could be helpful to put them all into a family called enemies. And you can say, if the hero shoots the family enemy, then destroy, the enemy, or the family. And it will destroy the enemy that you shoot. So you don't have to sit there and say, if the enemy shoots the bug, destroy the bug. If the enemy shoots the spaceship, destroy the spaceship. Stuff like that. So let's add a behavior to this whole family here. And we'll select this family behavior. Click the plus button. And we're going to choose the bullet behavior. And we can see here, if I select one of my pipes and go down here, it can say, now it says that it has a behavior applied to it. It's called bullet, and it's getting it from the family pipes. And the same for my other pipe here. It's getting it from the family pipes. And I can actually go in here and I can change these settings. So I could say, well, I don't want this pipe to be enabled, but I want the other pipe to be enabled, and it works that way. Or I can choose the pipes family and go to the behavior here and change it globally for all the objects. So now when I select this object here, you'll see that the initial state is disabled. And same for this one, because I changed it on a global scale by selecting the pipes family and disabling it here. For our purposes, we do want it enabled. We want them to be going at 200. I know this because I just made the game. And we don't want to set the angle. For this, it really doesn't matter that if we set the angle or not doesn't matter for this, because they're just rectangles, so that won't be that big of a deal. But for certain objects, if you say set the angle and it's moving this way, it'll rotate it, like this to face that way. So if I said I wanted it to move, down the Y and I had set angle true, it would literally rotate it to match the angle. And go down like that, and we don't want it rotating. For this one, it doesn't really matter since they're rectangles, but have it. So on the pipes family, we want, just to reiterate, want the speed at 200, set angle to no, and initial state enabled. So let's start spawning the pipes. We're going to go to add an event, system, every X seconds. And X is a placeholder for whatever we put in here, and the time is going to be 1.5 seconds. So it says every 1.5 seconds, what do we want to do? Well, what we want to do is we want to have, what do we want to do? We want to have the bottom pipe spawn another object, and the object that we want to spawn is the bottom pipe. Done. And the top pipe, we want to spawn another object. Spawn another object, top pipe. So, if you can see here, we have the bottom pipe spawner spawning the bottom pipe, and the top pipe spawner here spawning the top pipe. Every 1.5 seconds it spawns one of these new pipes. So, if we run this, let's just bounce them around for a little bit, you'll see that we're not seeing any pipes, because if I close this out, because when a pipe is spawned, it's spawned with its original angle that it had, which is 0. So it's being spawned, but they're traveling this way somewhere because the thing's facing this way. The little angle handlebar is facing this way, so they're actually going off that way somewhere. So we need to tell it to, when they spawn, to rotate it. To rotate it towards the angle that we want it to be traveling at. So we can go to add action, and this is where the families comes in helpful again, because we don't have to sit there and say bottom pipe rotate, top pipe rotate. We can just say all pipes set angle of motion under the bullet property, and the angle we want to set to is 180 degrees, which would be exactly the opposite of the way they were going. So now if I do this, let's see what this looks like. Should be getting some soon. There we go. So now we have those row pipes just bobbing along, all happy hunky-dory, coming through, and doing their whole pipe thing. Now, there is a problem here. We have what is called a memory leak. So, if I were to run this into my debug mode, you can see here, if I go over to my system, pipes, it's spawning a bunch of pipes. And if I were to let this game run for 2 days, 3 days, or whatever, it's just going to sit here and spawn objects for those days. They'll never be destroyed. They'll just keep spawning forever until our CPU usage is like through the roof, because it's trying to keep track of, you know, a million different objects. Sorry, I had to grab a little drink there. So what we want to do is to say, once these pipes reach past the screen over here, we want to destroy them so that way they're not, you know, taking up any memory, because we really don't care what the pipes are over here. So an easy way to do that is, we know the width of this is 75, right? So if this is at 0, we can see that it's still on the screen. But if we take half the width of 75 minus, or not minus, sorry, 75 divided by 2, 37.5. If I move this position to, we'll just round it up to 38, just to be sure, or negative 38, I'm sorry. Negative 38. We have now know that it's exactly perfectly off the screen by about half a pixel. So now we can say, add event, pipes, compare the X position of where they are in the X. If it is less than or equal to 38, or negative 38, I'm sorry, then we want to go to the pipes and we want to destroy them. Destroy them. Destroy them all. So now if I run this in debug mode again, it should have fixed our memory leak. So we're spawning pipes here, we're spawning pipes. More pipes, all the pipes in the world. And then once it gets to a certain number, it shouldn't go past 12 now. It shouldn't have more than 12 pipes on, you know, in the game at any point in time, because it's spawning at a consistent rate and destroying at the same position every time when they're off screen. And we're not getting any popping over here, which is nice. They're going completely off screen before they're destroyed. So now we've fixed that, basically that memory leak, which is nice. Good for performance. So now we have our pipes moving, and we have our pipes being destroyed when they go off screen. Let's create another group here and call it pipe movement, not movement, movement. We'll just move those down into there. And we'll go to add a comment. Moves pipes left every 1.5 seconds. Add another comment. Destroys pipes when they exit screen left. Done. Pipe movement. Yay. Now we can play this. Alright, so now what we need to do is set it so that way they're not all just spawning in a straight line like this. We want them spawning, you know, a little off kilter from each other. So the way to do that is we can go back to our pipe movement things, and every 1 second. So when the bottom pipe is created, we want to set its Y, and we want to set it to round, open parentheses, random, open parentheses. The lowest that we want it to go is, let's see, let's just say 480 for now. And the highest we want it to go is, say, 380. So actually it should probably be 380 and 480. And then 2 closing parentheses right there. So what this is basically doing is it's getting us a random number between 380 and 480, and it's rounding that random number up to the nearest whole integer. Because if you just do random, it might give you a float, which, I mean, for this isn't really that big of a deal, but I like to work with nice round numbers because it makes my job easier. So if I say I want a round random number, so round open parentheses, random open parentheses, this is the random number that we're getting here. This right here, this is this right here is our random event, and then our random event is enclosed in these round parentheses, so that's why we have 2 at the back end and 1 at the front over here. So that should set our bottom pipe to its Y position. Where's our bottom pipe? There's our bottom pipe. It should set its Y position after it's spawned to a random position between 480, whoops, not 488, 480. It should be either, that's the lowest it will go, and the highest it will go is up here somewhere. So that'll be the highest it'll actually go. So that's nice. And now we need to have the top pipe following it. So we can go to pipe, or add event, sorry, top pipe, set Y, and we want to set it to the bottom pipe dot Y. So that's going to basically set it to the exact same height that our bottom pipe is at, but we actually want to minus that 250 pixels. Is it how tall is this thing? Okay, so it's 250 wide. So if they're directly on top of each other, what's the Y this of -406? We'll do -400, -400. Alright, that's a little too high up. We'll just do it 0 so I can make my point here. Alright, so if they're spawning at the same exact height, this is the top pipe here, this is the bottom pipe. So if they're spawning at the exact same height, this is what it'll look like, except they'll be directly on top of each other. So we need to say we want it to at least spawn 250 pixels above, because we have 150 pixels worth of image from here to here, and 150 pixels worth from here to here. So 250 pixels above this. So if I put this to negative 250, it'll be perfectly, whoops, sorry. It'll be perfectly atop this one. So we want a gap though. So if we add another, so this is where our gap comes in. We could add 100. So if we want a 100 pixel gap, it would be negative 103.50. And that gives us a 100 pixel gap between the two, which is what we're looking for. So over here in our game events, we want to say, we want to set the top pipe to the bottom pipe's Y, which puts them smack dab on top of each other. Negative 250 would put them, the tips of them touching. And if we say 350, it'll give us a 100 pixel gap between them. Or at least it should, if I did it correctly. So let's play this and see what happens. Our bottom should be randomizing for us, and our top should be basically following that. Which it looks like it is. They seem like they're randomizing. Maybe 100 pixels isn't enough space here for this, but you know, we could change that. Doesn't seem like it's gonna be, and it's like really hard to squeak through. But maybe that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be really hard and difficult. But as you can see, they're not all at the same height. They're changing heights, and the one's following the other, and it's keeping the exact same distance between. It's always keeping 100 pixel distance between. But let's change this. So if we want to increase 50 pixels and give it a 150 pixel gap, we'll take 250, because we know that's the two heights, plus 150 pixel gap would bring us to negative 400. And that should probably be closer to what I had it in the other one. So we'll play this here. And there we go. And maybe that's a little too wide. You can play with the numbers. It's up to you, like how difficult you want your game to be and how frustrating you want it to be, and or what. So the interesting thing about this setup is that you'll notice is that your character is not actually moving in the x-axis at all. He's not moving left or right, but instead we're moving the world around him, which is, to me, it's an interesting fact that that's how the game works. Instead of actually moving the character and having this giant level over here with all these pipes, you know, set up, it's just this tiny little level where the character isn't moving in the X and the pipes are moving in the X, or actually coming towards him. So it makes it seem like he is moving, but he's actually not. He's not going anywhere, but it makes it look like he is. Specifically when you add like a parallaxing background that's just scrolling in the background to actually help give it some illusion of movement. So that's just an interesting tidbit there for you. Alright, so we have our little pipes going. They're separated from each other. This guy's hopping along. they're spawning at different heights. They're spawning at the exact number away from each other. So let's try to keep score as we move through these pipes. Yeah. So we'll close that down. And since before we move on, I'm going to show you how to organize your objects here, because this is getting a little, especially when you're working with big projects, it can get a little hard to read all this stuff. So if you go to your objects types and you right click that, you can add a subfolder, and I can call this subfolder game sprites here, and I can just move all my game sprites into it, which would be my pipes and my spawners and stuff. Whoops. My pipes and my spawners. And then as I add more objects, I can create more folders that hold just, one will hold text, and one will hold sprites, and one will hold buttons and user input and stuff like that. Just however I see fit to organize that. It's just kind of helpful. Let's see here. So for this, we're going to start adding the score now. We're going to go to our projects, and we're going to go to our layer tab. And let's rename this first layer to our game layer. We're going to create another one. We'll call this our UI, or user interface. This is where we'll display our score. So to display our score, we're going to right click, insert new object, and we're going to choose a text object and name it game score. And we'll call that left click, and we could set it to say score, is that colon, I think? Colon space 0. Sure, why not? Because that's the original. That's the starting score that you'll be starting with. So we can get rid of that. And for this, we're going to have to create a new object called the, what do we want to call this? Score spawner, because it's going to spawn our score object, and it can be the same. It could be any color, doesn't matter. Boom. I just like that yellow. It's just so nice. So let's set the X to the same. Right here, so they're all lined up. And just because it doesn't really matter where on the Y it is, but I like to, make things a little neat. A little neat, just a little neat, neato burrito. Okay. So that'll be spawning our score object. So let's create a score object, and we'll call this score pane. It's time for Pane, the score pane. Make it a color. And that. Alright, so we know these are 75 in width, so let's make these half of that, which would be 35.3. We'll round up to 36. So that way when they collide with it, they actually have to get at least, somewhat into the pipe. We're going to set it up to where when they collide with this object, it'll increment the score. And if it was the same width, like this, as soon as they even got to the pipe, it would increment the score. But we want them to at least make it halfway through the pipe before we start incrementing that score. So let's turn this back to 36. And what we can do is we can actually put this object, the score pane, into our families that we created earlier for the pipes. So we'll just select the pipe family, right click it, edit, choose our score pane, add it to the family. And now it has a perfect bullet behavior. Now we just go back to our pipe movement here, and we need to spawn it. So we'll go to add action, score spawner, spawn another object, choose the score pane. That's the object we want to spawn. We'll just move this up here so it's up to the other spawners. It's setting the pipes is being set, all the angles are being set, and since it's because that pipe family has the bullet behavior on it, and its angle is being set, so let's see what that looks like. Flap, 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 flap. I'm a Flappy Bird. Whee! So as we hit this, we'll set up the code later to where it actually increments our score. The problem with this is that there's two ways around this. I'm thinking what would be the best way to do it. I know how I did it last time, but now that I'm looking at it, there might be a better way to do this. So I'm going to go about it the better way. So we need to make this the same height as our level, which is 480. Done. and we'll go to our game events, and let's make sure, oh, this is a part of the pipes family, so when it goes off screen it's being destroyed. Perfect. So now we just run layout. Itching my head here, sorry. Flap, 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 flap. Come on now. There we go. And we get a perfect spawning score pane. And now we just have to set the code that says when we collide with that score pane, we want to increment the score, right? So we'll go to add group, call it scoring. We're gonna score. Okay, we'll say game sprites, Flappy on collision with another object. When it collides with the score pane, to add action. Actually, might help if we had a global variable that actually kept track of our score. Global variables are just a name, and it can either be a number or a text object or a number or string, and it stores a value for us. So our variable name is score, and the value it's currently storing is 0. So we want to say on Flappy on collision with the score pane, add action, system, global and local variables, add to score 1. So we want to add, every time we collide with the score pane, we want to add 1 to the score, which will increment our global variable here. But we also want to update our score text over here, or else they won't know that they got points. We're tracking their points now, but it's not displaying to the screen. So let's update our text over here to show that. So we can go to, on collision with the score pane, we can add another action here. Go to game score, and we want to set the text. We're going to do quotation point, score, colon, space, quotation point, the and symbol, and score. So what this is saying is, yes, we know, is it's saying display the text score, colon, space, and tack on our global variable score. So if we go into here now, wee. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we're keeping track of our score, and it's showing the score. Boom. So there's a couple of problems here. Is one, well, not a couple of problems, just one glaring, obviously, problem, is that this thing is in the way, and we don't want to be able to see it. So we'll select our score pane object, and we'll set its initial visibility to invisible. And before we test again, let's add another global variable called high score, because we also want to be tracking this. And to track the high score, it's really simple code. You'll go to add event, system, compare variables, and the variables you want to compare is if high score is greater than, or I'm sorry, if the score is greater than high score, done, add action, we want to set the value of high score to the current score. So this is saying if their current score is greater than the variable high score, then set the high score to the current score. So if this is 1 and this is 0, it's saying 1 is greater than 0, so set the 0 to 1. And later on, if, say, at one turn they got 3, and that was their highest, and then another turn they got 15, it would say, is 15 greater than 3? Yes, so set the high score to 15. And that's how it's going to track our high score. We're not displaying that yet. We'll display that on the game over page. But for now, it's nice to know that we're tracking it, and since we're already doing the scoring, I thought I'd throw it in there. Just a little bit. Throw a little something in there. Give me 1 second. I'm kind of parched from all this talking. Okay, there we go. Lubing up the pipes there. So now if we play, see, the little thing is gone. We don't see it anymore, but it's still counting our score, which is quite nice indeed. I'm making a little nice score here. But the problem is we can't really lose at all. There's no way to lose. I can go all the way, and if I come back, I can just click. Come on. There he goes. So just keep clicking along, and there we go. So we need a way to actually lose the game, or else this is going to be a really boring game. So what we'll do is we can say add event game sprites Flappy on collision with, on collision with the game sprites, top pipe, done. And we're going to right click this. We're going to go to make an OR block, right click the event, make OR block, right click the event again and go to add another condition. And we'll do the same thing, game sprite, flat bird, on collision with another object, game sprites, bottom pipe, done. So this is saying if the bird collides with the top pipe or if it collides with the bottom pipe, do something. We'll be telling it what to do here in 1 minute. So let me introduce you to instance variables. So we know we have global variables here that we can access within the event sheet and manipulate with the event sheet to store scores and show those scores to the screen. But we can also do instance variables, which are attached to specific objects. So we can actually go in here and grab our little Flatbird, and over here it says instance variables. We can add an instance variable, hit the new arrow, and we can call it is hit, or has hit, or is hit. And instead of a number, we're going to change it to a boolean. And a boolean is basically just false or true. False or true, 1 or 0, false or true. And by default, it will start off as false, because he hasn't hit anything yet. But when he collides with something, we want to go to add action, game sprites, Flatbird, and we want to set the boolean. It's under instance variables here. Set the boolean. And the boolean we want to set to is is hit, and we want to set it to true. So we know that he just hit something. And also, what would be helpful is if these were both solids, because as you can see right now, he can flap through them, so that's no bueno. Let's fix that by making these solids here. Behaviors. Solid. Now the reason I'm applying this to the pipe separately and not to the pipes family is because I have the score pane in the pipes family, and we don't want the score pane to be solid, or else we would just be running into this invisible wall, which is not conducive to the gameplay. So now that they're solids, this guy should hit them. I think the platform behavior comes with a solid attached. Yeah, he does. So there we go. We don't have to add a solid behavior to him because the platform behavior comes with the solid already attached to him. Look at him hitting this stuff left and right. Look at him hitting his stuff left and right. Whee! Okay, so we want to. So the first thing we want to do is we'll say Flatbird on collision with the top pipe or the bottom pipe. We want to set his instance variable is hit to true. Add event, game sprites, Flatbird. Let's compare his boolean is hit. If the Flatbird is hit, what do we want to do? We want to call a function, and to do that, we're going to go over here into the game layout, right click, insert new object, and we're going to choose a function object under the general tab. And this is a really helpful thing that I'll explain right now, actually. So first let's set up the function that we want to call, right? So let's go to add event, choose function, on function, and this function is going to be on, or game over. So basically, say is hit, we want to call the game over function. So what a function does is when we call it, it runs a bunch of actions for us. So that way we can call this function from other parts in our code without having to, like, if say we don't have to sit here and say copy paste our code over and over and over again. We can just call the function game over and over and over again, which is a lot easier and a lot cleaner on our code to say, hey, just call the game over function, instead of, having to use all the game over stuff over and over and over again. So what do we want this function to do? Well, first we want to stop the pipes from moving, correct? So we can go to, let's see here, pipes, set enabled, and disable their bullet. Let me go back to that because I might have skipped over that. So we go to pipes, bullets, set enabled, next, set state disabled. So that's going to stop our pipes from moving, which is great. Now the next thing that we want to do is stop our player from being able to control the bird, right? Well, where does he control the bird? He controls it up here in the bird movement. So if we go over to here, and this is where this is hit is going to come into play, our left click allows us to make the bird jump. But if we add another condition that says game sprites, flap bird is instant bullet variable set is hit, so now they can only flap the bird if one, they're left click on the button, and the flap bird's instance variable is set to is hit. But we don't want them to be able to flap when they're hit, we want them to be able to flap when they're not hit. So we can hit the I key with this selected, or you can right click and choose invert to invert the boolean. So I know there's a lot of information, but just to be clear, this is saying on left button clicked and the flap bird has not been hit, then we can have him bounce and everything like that. Otherwise, if he collides with a pipe, this sets is hit to true, and if is hit is true, they're not going to be able to do this anymore because this is checking to make sure it has to be false to make them do that, right? And this over here is turning off the pipes for us. So if we run this, and if we hit something, I'll go through a couple, boom, hit it, and the game stops. Now, let's see, let's add some grouping here so we can see what's going on. We'll call this the game over group. Game over, son, you just lost. And we'll just move all this game over stuff in here. And let's add some comments so anyone behind us knows exactly what we did. So, flap bird on collision, set instance variable to true. Select this, Control C, Control V, drag this down. If flap bird is hit, then call the game over function. Control C, Control V, move this down. On game over. For right now, we're just disable piples. Disable piples. I can't type. Disable pipes. On game over, disable pipes, and we can edit this later because we're going to be doing a lot more than just disabling the pipes. Look at this neat code. Neato burrito. Alright, so let's see here. We can do this, but we can also fall straight through, which is no bueno. So let's add a quick ground. So we'll go to layers. We're going to add a new layer. We'll call this BG for background. Unlock it because I'm an idiot. And we're just going to drag this down to the bottom here. And with the BG layer selected, we're going to right click, insert new object, sprite, and call the sprite ground. Boom. And we'll make it black because I'm emo like that. And let's make it super wide to fill the whole screen. And as you can see, our background is being cut off. So why is that happening? Well, because it sets the game layer was the original bottom layer, and the original bottom layer, when it starts up a new layout, it sets its transparency to no. So now that we moved it up in the layers set, we want to set that transparency to yes. And now the whole game is transparent, so we need to go back to our BG and set the transparency to no. So now we have our ground. But still, he'll just fall right through it, so let's go to add behaviors, make it a solid so we can't pass through it. And on our game over stuff, we can say, we can add another condition here. Whoops, sorry. On our flap bird on collision, set instance variable to true. We can add another, right click here, add another condition, game sprites, flap bird on collision with another object, ground. Okay, done. Then set is hit to true. If is hit to true, call the game over function, and then if the game over function is called, all this stuff goes off. So if the bird collides with the pipe, the top pipe, the bottom pipe, or the ground, then we're saying game over. So now, boom, game's over. And if we could sit here forever and nothing else is going to come. Okay, so now we have all this good stuff, but we don't have, what are we missing? What are we missing? Missing a game over screen, right? Yeah, we're missing a game over screen. We don't have nothing to show, you know, their high score or their score. Tell them to retry again. So let's lock off these game and BG layers and work with the UI layer for a little bit. And I would suggest going into Photoshop and, you know, or GIMP or whatever you have, and, you know, making a nice image. But I'm just going to work completely within Construct, so it's easy for you guys. And we'll call this Game Over BG. Done. Let's make it a nice depressing gray color. Whoops. Fill that. We'll use a darker gray to hold our score boxes. That'll be the score. This will be the high score, and down here will be our replay button. Look at that. Look how professional that looks. Super professional, guys. I really wish this is off topic, but I really wish Construct would put a text, so we could add text inside here as well, instead of having to rely on the text objects within here. It would just make it a little bit easier, I think. Anyways, back on topic. So, we got our little game over thing here. Let's add some. First, let's organize. I'm starting to get confused by all this stuff I have. So, ground will be a game sprite. Score pane will be a game sprite. Score spawner, we'll call it a game sprite. Sure, why not? And let's add a subfolder called game over. This will hold all our game over page stuff, because we're going to have, you know, this, we're going to have two text objects, and we're also going to have a button object to help us restart. So it'd be nice if those are all in one folder. And we have game score here, which is a text object, so let's add another subfolder called text. And move that game score into there, and then the function and mouse can just kind of chill. You know, they're chilling. They're chilling. They don't need to be pushed into some box, man. You can't put them into some box. Okay, so with that all organized now, sorry, a little OCD there. With our UI layer selected, we're going to right-click, insert new object, and we're going to choose Form Controls button, and we're going to call this the replay button. Button. Who's got the button? Checks here. We're going good. Cool. And with the button selected, we can go over to its properties and change the text to replay. And let's make it big. Real big. Okay. And we'll set the initial visibility to invisible, and let's do the same for this because we don't want it to be visible until the game over actually happens. These will be invisible. We can still see them in here in our editor, but we won't be able to see them in game when we start, as you can tell from this. So good, we can't see them. But we'll turn them visible once the game over thing is brought up. So we're going to insert a new object. We're going to call it a text object. And we'll call this GM high score text, because long names excite me. And we'll change this to high hyphen score, because let's get fancy with it. And we'll change the color to white. And just move this over to here. About that, that's fine. And insert new object, text object, GM score text txt, because acronyms excite me. And we'll go set this to score. And let's just move this over here. Yeah, it looks about right. It looks about right. And let's do one more called GM title. Whoops, that was the wrong one. What am I doing, guys? Right click, insert new object, text object, not a sprite. GM title. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. I put this into my, even though I deleted it. Okay, select it over there. Delete. Insert new object, text, GM title. It was mad because I accidentally selected a sprite, and then I deleted the sprite in my layout, so I thought it would delete it over here, but it didn't, and, you know, things. Alright, so we'll change this to say game over, sucker. And let's set the horizontal alignment to the center, just so it's easy for me to kind of do. And let's set the initial visibility to invisible, and let's do that for these others as well. Alright, so there we go. That's our game over screen or whatever. So it would be helpful if we could put these all in a family, but since they're different object types, we can't. Since they're text, sprite, and button, we can't put them into a family. We can put them into a container, but I think that's a little more than I want to get into right now. I don't really think for a simple game like this we really need to go talking about containers. So we're just going to leave that out and just do it the old-fashioned elbow grease way and just do the objects one by one. So on game over, we want to say, when we call our game over function here, I should say, under pipes where we set this disabled, we want to go to add action. And actually, let me move all these new objects I made into my game over folder so I can find them easily. Whoops, come on, get in there. Get on in there, you little sucker. Alright, replay button. Okay, now we can do this. Add action, game over folder, and just go one by one, select this. We want to set it visible, done. And we have how many other objects in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total. So we can select this, Control C, we already have one, and hit V 4 times, Control V 4 times. Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V, and well, that's 5. And then just go in here and change the object that we're referencing. Oops, yeah, we're going invisible. We're going visible, not invisible. Oops, that one's the wrong one. Set visible, sucker. Visible. So, and then we want to take all of this, Control C, and we need to create a new group called Initialize. And this is a group that I use often in my code, and it's basically, it just resets everything after the browser resets, after we reset the layout, and it's just, it's something I use all the time. So, system, on start of layout, we can paste all these in there and select them and change them to invisible. So that way when the layout restarts, it'll set all these to invisible. Oops. And another good practice in getting into is we have some stuff on off screen that we really not using at all, such as this and these, because these are being spawned in to our game. Is it set on the UI layer? It is. You right click it and you go to your game layer. Okay, so we have these objects over here, up to here, these that we don't need. When the game starts, they're just shooting off this way somewhere. So let's actually destroy those objects by, on start of layout, add action, game over sprites, top layer, or bottom pipe, destroy. We'll copy and paste that twice and change it to top pipe, next, none, back, score pane, done. So we're destroying the bottom pipe, the top pipe, and the score pane, and we can move this group up into the initialize function, or initialize group, sorry. So basically, at the start of the layout, it's going to destroy these pipes that we don't need, and just stuff that's taking up memory that we really don't need in the game. Obviously, we need our spawners, and our spawners are going to be recreating these objects for us, so we don't need these up here. And let's see here. So we have a game over, and when the game is over, it should be setting all this stuff to visible. But we also need to set the text in here too, because right now it's just saying score. So what we want to do is, after it becomes visible, or probably before, but we're going to go to game over, GM high score text. Let's set the text to high-score, because it's fancy. And let's put a bunch of spaces in there. And high score. And we can Control C, Control V on that, and change this to, say, score, and score. Go back and change the text to GM score text, sorry. So burpy. And let's move these up to set those texts before they become visible. Right. Okay. So let's run this and see what this looks like when we die. The nightman cometh. Dayman, fighter of the nightman. So we can see it displays our score and our high score, and the reason for those spaces is because this is all one text here. So I put these spaces in so that way it would actually, be over here in our thing. The replay button does nothing, as it should, because we haven't set it up yet. So first of all, we want this replay button to be disabled on start, because if it is enabled and they're playing and they happen to click here, even though it's invisible, if it's enabled it will be clickable and they can restart the game by clicking on it. So we don't want that to happen. So we can go to, now that we've disabled it, we can go to System, Game Over, Replay button on clicked, and System, let's just restart the layout to go back to the beginning, which should be in here somewhere. Restart layout. Done. And we can just move this into the game over. Now the problem is that they can't restart because the button is right now disabled, so we need to re-enable it on the game over function called. So we get a replay button, and we want to set enabled. Done. So we set the button to enabled, and then it restarts the layout, and after it restarts the layout we want to disable the button again, because we don't want them to be able to click it accidentally while they're playing. Disabled. Done. And let's just comment this so we know what's going on. Restarts the layout. Restarts the layout. Fine. Good enough. And now when the layout restarts, we can go back to our initialize, and we want the score to be reset because we don't want them to carry on their score that they had from before. So we can go to System, Next, Set Value, set the score to 0. Done. So let's go to this. Alright. Score 0, 0. And now we're going to flap around a little bit. Go through the little tubies. Oh, god dang it. Replay. And you can see this is where the replay button was, and I can't click over there. So that's all nice and well and good, and I can get through these little tubers. Get a nice new high score, maybe, hopefully, come on. Yeah, high score. And it keeps my high score here. Score is there. Whee! So I think the only thing we are missing at this current point in time is the click to start, right? Right? Am I right? Am I right? Okay. I think that's the only thing we're missing. So let's do the click to start, right? And it'll be on the UI layer. Right click, insert new object. It'll be a text object. We'll call it click to start. Very obvious of what it is. The text will say click to play, click to start. Let's do left click. Let's just assume people are stupid and they don't know that, left click means left click. They might be right clicking the whole time, like, what do I do? Why isn't it playing? Okay, so how are we going to do this? We'll say initialize system, set timescale to 0, which will set the entire game to pause, basically. On the very start of the layout, it'll pause the entire game. And we could say add event. Add event. Add event. Mouse. On click. Done. Add action. System. Set time scale to 1. And that will work, as I shall show you here. Left click to start, I click, and it starts. You know what I mean? So that will work, and if I die, replay, it gets frozen again. So that works, but the and obviously we need to set this to be invisible afterwards, so we can say on the button clicked. Click to start. Set visible. Where is it at? I can't find it. Set visible. Invisible. Done. And then on initialize, we want to set it to be visible again. So yeah, this works, right? I mean, I left click and the game starts and it's all hunky-dory, right? And if I crash, you know, it comes back to this, left click to start, and it goes again. So this works. The problem with the code is that every time I left click, it's setting the time scale to 1. And it's really not hurting anything because the time scale is already set to 1 and everything, but it is a sloppy way to write code. So it'd be nice to know, like, oh, if the game is paused or if the game is unpaused, then we'll do it. So we can like add a condition here. So we can add a global variable called paused. Or actually, let's do an instance variable, since we did that before, and it's nice to get a little practice with instance variables. Add new is paused. Whoops, paused. Call it a number with the initial value of 0. Add this. Add a condition. Click to start. Compare instance variable is paused is equal to 0. Set the time scale to 1. Add an action. Click to start. Set value of our is paused to 1. So now this won't fire anymore because we've just changed the is paused to 1. So no matter what they click, it won't fire ever again. And we need to set it back, is paused back to 0 on the game over. Yes. Yes, this is what we need to do. Or we probably do it on the initialize, but, you know, it's wherever you want to do it. You can do it in the game over, do it in the initialize. Actually, no, we want to do it in the initialize, not the game over. It's not wherever you want. You know, this isn't all willy-nilly. There's reasons for things. Okay, so we'll go to click start, set value, is paused back to 0. And in my brain, this makes sense, but does it make sense in code? Who knows? Let's find out. So that's going, and we crash. Oof. And it works. So now we're not calling it every single time, you know, we're clicking. We're not resetting the time scale every single time. Which, like I said, you know, in a small game like this, probably not going to be that big of a deal, but, you know, you're working on larger games, and it could maybe cause some issues, and it's just nice to keep code clean for other people that might, you know, especially if, like I said, if you're having trouble with your code, and you want to put your stuff up on the Circa forums and ask for help, it's really nice to have all your code commented and legible and understandable and not be doing things all willy-nilly style. So we'll say add a group, click to start, put this in here, and let's just throw that in the initialize. And I think that's it. Yeah. About an hour video. Okay, cool. So let me talk about two things that are super helpful when working with Circa. Just open up my Dropbox here. I suggest that if you're making games, you get a Dropbox account immediately. Not responding? Oh no. Oh god. Internet failing. Computer failing. Everything failing. Okay. Wait, does it work? Oh yeah, you were trying to trick me, weren't you? www. Come on. www. No, it's not working. Oh, there it goes. I don't know why it's... Oh, I think I'm trying to sync a Dropbox right now. It's like chugging away all my internet speeds. Dropbox for business. So if you want to make circuit games or construct games, I seriously suggest getting a Dropbox account, and I'll explain why right now. Is because it makes it crazy simple to share your games and share your caps, your project files with people from around the world and on the circuit forums. If I open up this, I go to my public folder. I can create a new folder in my public folder. You can see all these different games that I have that I've made over the years. You can create a new folder in here, and you can export your game into it, and you can literally just grab, so let's say asteroids. I can right click the index here and copy, when I right click it, it'll come up, say copy public link or something. Copy public link, go into my browser, and I can give this link to anybody and the game will play for them. And I can just paste that link that I got. Come on, paste the link. There we go. So I can paste that link, and then I can run, and I can send it to my friends, and they can play my game, and everybody else, and it's really cool. So I super suggest that if you're going to be playing or making construct games, that you get a Dropbox, and it's free. You can try it for free. There's no, I don't pay for mine. It's completely free. You don't have to pay for it. I think there's like up to like 3 gigs or 2 gigs or something like that data you can use, and when you're exporting these games, they're really tiny. So real quick, let's talk about exporting your game. So we have a game that we like, and over here I'll just create a new folder called export. Export. So we just made this awesome Flappy Bird game. So we can go to, oops, File, Export Project, HTML5 for the website. Next. Where do you want to export it to? Well, I just made that thing on my, over here. Custom char Flappy Bird clone. And export folder, done. Okay. Hit next. The template, I always use normal style. And it's going to export my project for me, which should take up to 10 hours. No, I'm kidding. It's like usually a couple minutes, depending on the size of your project and how many things you have in there. Oh, my Dropbox is synced. That's nice. So I can open my destination folder, go into my Dropbox folder over here. Here's my Dropbox. Public. Do I have a Flatbird? Nope. Let's right click, new folder, Flatbird, and I can go over to my Flappy Bird clone. Where is that Flatbird? So this is the export that just came out of construct. I can choose all these files, Control C, not Control Z, Control C, go over to here, Control V. This little blue circle comes up that's saying it's uploading it to the Dropbox right now. And then once I get a little green check mark over the file, I'll know that it's ready to go. So it still has that little blue one. So it's updating my Dropbox, and it's good. So now I can right click it, or double click it, choose the index file, right click that, copy a public link, and paste and go. And I can actually send this link to any of my friends. I can put it on my YouTube channel. I can send it up into the Circa forums and be like, hey, check out my new game I'm making. But not only that, this isn't where the real help comes from. The real help comes from is when you file and you save your project as a single file. Single file line, please. Circa Games. Where is it at? Flappy Bird clone. Put in the export. Flatbird. Okay. Go to my Flappy Bird clone. Export. This is where I put the caps at. And I can copy this over into my Flappy Bird folder. It's going to update. I can right click, copy public link, and I can literally link people to the entire project that I've been working on, and they can download it. Open up my my folder. You can see it downloaded here for me. Open up my game, and start tinkering with it and help me solve any issues I have. So this can be a great way to get help on this on the construct forums if you're really struggling, or if you need help and you're just like, I don't understand this. Here's what I have set up. Can you guys look at it? Great way to get your project into other people's hands for help. So I think that will cover it for our Flappy Bird game for today. I would love to see any creations you guys have with this Flappy Bird thing. It doesn't have to be Flappy Bird. It could be a crappy turd and you're a poo, like going through the intestines of a person. I don't know. It'd be great to see, obviously something a little cooler looking than this. This is just very simple boxes and stuff. But even if you guys could just recreate this, it'd be great to see that too. So, leave comments, questions. I'll try to get to them if I can. This is Nick Stalker with Demonic Procedures. Just remember, the demon's inside.